Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of our program. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we have with us Allan Knight, who is the founder of Knight International Network. Welcome to the program, Allan.
Thank you very much, Mike, for having me.
Hey, so tell us a little bit about your background, and I understand from your bio that it is a interesting and fascinating background. So bring us up to speed on that, and then what led you then from that stage of life to what you currently are doing to impact the lives of people now?
Well, in a nutshell, my main claim to fame, I guess, is that most people would call me a communication coach or expert, helping people to master the art of communication, both on a personal level and business relationships. Sorry, I just ate something and it went down the wrong way. My story starts when I'll be really brief, a little brief overview. When I was 13, my mother was diagnosed with cancer and told she had 6 months to live, and she lived for about 20 years. So she was my first role model of the power of the human spirit. Then when my father passed away when I was 19, I decided to take a year off university, travel around the world, and myself came close to dying on the desert one day, which was a life-changing experience. And from that point, up until that point, I was pretty interested in sports. I was a jock, and I really was a little confused in terms of what my career was. But I went from being an atheist to exploring my spiritual side of me. And when I came back to Montreal, where I'm originally from, I met some people that were living as Zen monks, and I went to visit them, and I started to meditate, and it kind of really was very life-changing for me, because I learned how to go to a much deeper place that I always wanted to be, sort of centering myself, getting in that Zen zone. And then, of course, after 9 years of that, I miss girls too much, so I'm sure you could appreciate that, Mike. And so I left living as a monk and went back into society. And then I realized that I wasn't living in the Himalaya mountains. I was living in North America, and you have to deal with the day-to-day relationships and stresses and, competition and all the things that you have to deal with. And so I went back to university to get a master's degree in counseling and psychology. And my thesis was the quality of relationships with other people are founded on the quality relationships you have with yourself. And that sort of dictated where I was going to go from there. I knew I was going to do training programs, develop my own training program. I worked for many years with financial advisors, realtors, entrepreneurs, and over the years I've created a fast-track sort of personal development and communicating mastery program, because I felt that so many people that came to my office were inundated with reading a lot of books, going to rah-rah seminars, but when I did my evaluation, many of them still procrastinated, had a hyperactive mind, had experienced fear of rejection, etc. And so I knew that I needed to take the awareness that people had and take them into the gymnasium. And that's how I created the 9-step formula, which is translated in my recent book, Knight Without Armor, and the training program that I offer. In a nutshell, that's my brief overview.
Well, thank you for being on the show. Have a nice weekend. That's a big nutshell there, mister. That's awesome. Hey, so I want to get to your 9-step formula in a second, but you said something interesting that made me think of a point about the self-help industry. I think that many times people turn it into the shelf help, where they just go to something or read something or listen to something and then put it up on the shelf, either figuratively or literally, and it just doesn't do anything. They think that it's like taking a bath, it's just going to work, and then they don't realize you got to take another bath. So what do you feel is the difference between the self-help industry and the personal development aspect of it, which is taking ownership, implementing, and actually developing, so that you don't have, 10 years of experience one time over? It's actually building upon itself.
Well, you express yourself so well. It's a beautiful question, and I asked myself that question many, many years ago, and then the light bulb went on, because I'm sure you and your listeners have heard the expression, knowledge is power. Almost every seminar I went to, people would say, how many people believe knowledge is power? And everyone would put up their hand, because everyone kind of honors knowledge. Now, knowledge is really important in certain situations. In your industry, you better have knowledge of finance if I want to hire you as the expert. So if we want to be a doctor, knowledge is power. But what I've learned is when it comes to mastering our relationships and skills and mastering our own relationship with ourselves, in many cases, the opposite is power. The heart is power, simplicity is power, patience is power, presence of mind is power. So when I saw that, I realized that, if I was terribly out of shape and you were a physical fitness trainer and I hired you, you wouldn't send me off to read a lot of books or attend rah-rah seminars. You'd get me in the gymnasium. So that's when I discovered that I needed to get into the gymnasium and develop an inner shape-up, inner fitness system and verbal mastery system that's equivalent to someone going into the gymnasium the way they would in a physical fitness regime over a period of months. They get into top shape. And that requires action, accountability. It requires mental toughness. It requires repetition. It requires practice and ultimately mastering your communication. But a lot of people just depend on the quick fix of going to the motivational person who temporarily gets them pumped up, or they think that by reading books and getting the knowledge will be enough. It's good, makes you aware, but it doesn't transform you.
Yeah, I've heard it said that knowledge is power is a fallacy because what you just said, but knowledge is only potential power because what has to happen for it to become power? It has to be implemented. You can have the cure for fill in the blank to whatever out there and have that knowledge, but it doesn't do anything until you put it into action. Then the other thing you said, which it made me think of, that focus. It has to be focused power because guess what? The sun is powerful. But I'm in Denver, Colorado, and I can walk out and for 20, 30 minutes be in the sun, and I probably won't get a burn. But if you concentrate that sun and you take a big old magnifying glass and then you concentrate it on a leaf, it's going to burn in a matter of seconds. So how can we take our knowledge from our, personal experiences, the things we're learning, and really focus that into some area of our life so that we begin developing personally? I think that's a massive point that you bring up.
Absolutely. And, leading us to talk a bit about the 9 steps, I like to keep things really simple. If you get into gymnasium and you work out to build your muscles, I don't have to explain too much. I'm going to show you how to get those weights and lift them step by step. And in the same way, I like to simplify even the 9 steps into 4 categories: V, M, A, C. Now, C represents our communication skills because you and I and all of us have to communicate with people every day in our business and our personal life. But what I've discovered is that 80% of our communication comes from the inside out, the non-tangibles, our passion, our enthusiasm, our confidence, our assertiveness, our patience, our compassion. And so that represents, V represents vision. First, we need to have a clear vision of who we are and where we want to go. Second, M is for mindset, mastery, and motivation. In order to get to that vision, we need to have that inner fortitude, that inner power. We need to have the mental toughness, the passion, the confidence, the belief in ourselves. And a lot of people don't, and that's why they fall off the track. Like you said, they put it on the shelf. A is for action and accountability, and C ultimately is for communication. So what I've discovered, Mike, is that if we can consolidate and strengthen a clear vision, an ongoing commitment to personal development in the form of mental toughness and self-esteem and living in that what I call the Zen zone, and then taking consistent action in our business and personal life, and ultimately master our communication, master our questioning and listening skills, then we can't go wrong. We can only achieve the highest level of happiness and success in our lives.
Yeah, I think one of those elements of that taking consistent action, too many times we all will start something and go, well, that didn't work out. Well, you did it twice, and I think that too many times people think something is either too overwhelming, but many things that we do easily now would have been overwhelming for us when we first did it. So I think it's really that mindset of looking at something through the lens of not what it is at the moment, but what it will be when we get a little bit closer toward mastery of it.
Yeah, and I think the reason why so many people get off track from the consistent action goes back to A. Preceding A is M. And a lot of people, unfortunately, have a combination of different emotional, psychological issues and baggage and turbulence that keeps them from consistent action or communication. If, let's say, I'm a young single guy, use dating, for example, and let's say I have some insecurities from my background, and I see somebody that really attracts me, and then I ask them out, and they reject me. And all of a sudden, I get triggered. My fear of rejection gets triggered, and I decide more and more to procrastinate on all future opportunities to approach someone because I don't want to be rejected. But if we deal with the inner rejection and go through the transformation that's needed in the M side of the column, and we get really mentally tough and believe in ourselves, we're not going to be put off with failure or rejection. And I learned that a long time ago when I worked in call centers. Boy, if you're going to let rejection get you, you better get out of that room pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, I think the other aspect of that is you need to set realistic expectations of what that consistent action you're doing should bring to you. Because I think that too many times in our society, we want to do something once, quick, fast, and get 10,000% magnification results. And that's not the case.
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. I make it clear to all my clients that if you have a big vision, that's where V comes in. Have that vision. You don't want to take away people's excitement about a vision, but then you have to have a realistic strategy for that. So in the A in action and accountability part, I always break it down to, whatever your big vision is, let's talk about what the step-by-step process is, and even to the point of what are you going to do over the next week, and each day with a quota, actual running total, where we encourage everybody to take action. Let's say exercise 30 minutes every day. So they have 30, 30, 30, 30 for 1 week, and then the actual and the running total, plus or minus. And at the end of the week, their success partner is going to ask them how they did. You ask each other how you did. And over a period of 30, 60 days, you start doing that. You sooner or later are going to stay on track and get on track, stay on track and stay consistently. Even if you fail, you pick yourself up by the bootstrap because we're also working on M, which is the mindset. So the mindset and the action and accountability system together are what makes this more doable and has a lot more results attached to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And let me ask you a question about your 9-step formula. I think that some of the, when you gave that overview, some of those phrases and things people could at first glance think, oh, heard that. Yep, I know that one. What makes some of those steps unique in your formula so that people would feel that they could actually accomplish and stay on track and do these things consistently?
Well, first of all, the first 7 steps are focused on empowering yourself. Step 8 and 9 is mastering your communication. Step number 1 is the assessment and the evaluation. So you get a clarity. You rate yourself on about 30 categories from 0 to 100%. And every month we keep rating ourselves so you see your scores increase. Number 2 is letting go of the negative past. You have to let go neutralize some of the negativity before you get into consistent action like you're talking. So we have a letting go of the past various exercises to quickly neutralize some of that inner infection that's in the body, so to speak. Number 3 has to do with visioning and purpose. I teach people an impact visioning process, which is the foundation of the superstructure. You're replacing some of the negativity with some of the more positive elements of what you're, just like a company has a mission statement. So step 1, 2, and 3 are easy peasy. 4, 5, and 6 is where the grunt work is. 4 is unleashing your inner warrior. That's where inner fitness comes in. To take action, which is number 5, which we call take charge of your life, you need to be very strong on the inner level. So we help you to transform some of your negative thinking with a 3-part unique affirmational transformational process. Most affirmations don't work because they're limited to the rational mind. we deal with connecting the mind to the emotion, to the intuition, to your action. So with a combination of some inner fitness exercise that reprogram the mind, channel the emotions from fear, anger, being down into passion, joy, and enthusiasm by tapping into the Zen zone of clarity, inner peace, and tranquility. The inner fitness exercises, Mike, help you to have such a great feeling about yourself. Now, the accountability system we use in number 5 is much more realistic to achieve. And with the success partner, with the prioritization list, and with the personal tracking sheet, now you're mastering your external achievements. So number 4 and 5 help you to master or empower your whole personhood until we get to number 6, which is busting through the barriers and dealing with the obstacles in life. So it's the combination of all of them that help you to keep your actions and accountability in check.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing that I hear through much of what you're saying is accountability, and you're not in it alone, and it's not a download this form and fill out the check boxes and here you go, or it's not a read this book and now you're fixed. It's a process, and I would suspect that you really would prefer that people go through the process with your coaching, because it's going to make sure that it gets implemented because of that big, huge thing called accountability.
Well, my attitude is, I'm here to make a difference in the world. If people just want to buy my book and learn the 9 steps that way, because they might not be able to afford personal coaching or buying our soon-to-come digital products, that's fine. There's many ways. I want to make it as easy as possible for people to implement, get clear on what the 9 steps are, and then implement them as best as they can.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. What do you find when you're working with people that maybe have tried it on their own? What do you find is their biggest mistake that they were making, and then when you identify that becomes the trigger for them to see the results finally?
Well, I think, I call it a fast-track system for personal development and communication mastery. Obviously, people have their own lives, and people have their own baggage and their own level of commitment. But the nice thing about the 9-step program is it becomes a self-coaching system. So if I take a person through it, they overcome procrastination, and then they get off track 3 months down the road, they have exactly the roadmap now, and they know exactly what to do to get back on track in any one of those 9 areas that they get off track. I would say the vast majority of people will get off track because of, I'd say the number one issue that holds most people back, if I have to take one thing, I would say that most people are way too self-critical and way too hard on themselves. And that's why I'm a big believer that if we could learn how to accept, respect, and love ourselves like our own children in a good way, not in a selfish way, and with that joy and confidence and unconditional love for other people, we will empower every aspect and every business relationship we have and every personal relationship we have. And that's the cancer lies in lack of self-confidence, and lack of self-esteem, and being too hard on ourselves. And that's why a lot of people get off track. They get triggered too easily.
Yeah. And then that becomes a downward spiral. They say, well, I can't do this, and I certainly can't do that, and then it becomes I can't do anything, and then it is this whole process that gets all lumped together, like it starts attracting, static electricity.
Well, that's why in step number 4, we really, really consolidate and intensify the ability for people to see how their rational mind, the analytical mind, you can either use it for positive purposes like studying to be a doctor or learning financial information like you teach, or you could have a hyperactive mind and a negative mind. And a lot of times we get into the world and we get triggered. Look how many successful people get married, fall in love, and then they end up in a terrible, terrible breakup. And often it becomes because of insecurity, fear, manipulation, control, jealousy, because they might be very knowledgeable in education, but they're not that masterful when it comes to their own emotions and their own relationship skills. And so they trigger each other, and then a lot of pain and suffering can come as a result of that. That's why one of the programs that I just launched is called the Soulmate Revolution. We're just launching it now. And it's all about empowering our personal relationships from the inside out. And so people that go through it are going to go through I call it your inner soulmate program aspect, and then mastering the art of their communication. So it's going to help a lot of people who are sick and tired of the dating sites, which are half the time you're going on, half the people are married and just want to have sex. You're going to be meeting people who've already worked on themselves. So especially the women, I feel comfortable, are going to meet more quality men. So I'm kind of really looking forward to that program.
Super. That sounds really, really good. Hey, so leave us with one last final thought, a super important tip, and then tell us how listeners can learn more about your program.
I would say my main tip is that if you could remember every day, live each day as it's a lifetime in itself. Be grateful that you're alive, and try to remember. I have certain what I call triggers and anchors. Some of my most wonderful people in my life have died in the last 5 years, and some of them are young. And I live my life every day and juice it. And when I get off track, and I encourage all your listeners, if you could develop an attitude that when you start to see yourself go off track with negativity, feeling sorry for yourself, do whatever it takes to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. Say, I don't want to go down that road. I want to get back on track. And keep it simple, live in the present, and move toward happiness and success. That's my little feedback for the day.
I love it. Super. So what is the best website that listeners can use to learn more about your program?
The best website would be connectwithpower.com. And by the way, Mike, I'm going to give your listeners specifically a special gift. If they go to connectwithpower.com, they'll see on the right side, one of the links will take them to get part of my book free. And if they download that free and they email me at allan@connectwithpower.com, I will send them the entire book free for any of your listeners. Just let us know that Mike sent them, and I'll be happy to do that.
Perfect. Connectwithpower.com. Download the book and send Allan an email, and you get the whole rest of it, and that's a wonderful offer. So thank you so much for your time. It was great getting to know you and some of your really unique approaches to personal development. I really loved it.
And go Broncos, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allan.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.